Blake, is there an artist in the music world that you are just such a fanboy of, but you're too embarrassed to admit it?
Taylor Swift, immediately. Wait, I just admitted it.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech director out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, the only person at the company that feels a sense of pride for knowing when a mixing board is a mixing board and not a lighting board. And I'm here with my boss, who can definitely tell the difference, Toby Walters.
Thanks for that. Yes, I do know the difference between an audio mixing console and a lighting console. So I'm hoping that by the time you work here for 3 years, you will know the difference.
See, if I ever start to learn it, though, the bit won't be funny. I have had a moment in an earlier conversation where Nate said Behringer X32, and I actually had a mental image of it. I just didn't tell anybody.
I'm so proud of you.
I got it.
You're growing up before our very eyes here.
I'm trying.
Okay, so obviously we buy gear and we sell gear. It's kind of our thing.
I thought we just do podcasts.
Well, this is sort of the cherry on the top.
Okay.
So someone local in Nashville saw our reverb store and reached out directly and said, hey, I've got some gear that I need to sell. And I've sold it myself for a while. We've sold it. He was a little elusive. Do you guys buy stuff from other people? And I'm like, yes, it's exactly what we do. I mean, our thing is church gear. We buy from churches, but occasionally we get approached by individuals, artists, other production companies. Great. So he gives me the list of gear, and it's great stuff. It's like there were a bunch of Nord keyboards and some just really cool synthesizers, some guitar amps, and it was like A-level stuff. And I was like, yes.
This is a happy dance list.
Yes. I mean, how many, worship bands that are trying to be the cool kids in America need a Nord keyboard on stage?
That's why we don't get them.
Every single one of them. So this gentleman basically told me this stuff comes from a production company owned by an artist. I can't tell you the artist, and we'll leave it at that. And I was like, okay. So he gave me the list of gear. I gave him the prices. He said, great, let's do it. So we bought all this, wonderful gear. And then about 6 months later, same gentleman reached out again, said, hey, we've got some more gear. You interested? I said, absolutely. This time it was a lot of... there was some like rack gear, preamps, compressors, a few of those things, but also a lot of bass pedals for bass guitar. And occasionally we do pedals. We just don't get a lot of them. Like churches don't have closets full of pedals anymore.
Churches are not pedaling pedals.
They're not typically. They usually have a Kemper with all that stuff built in. So I got it. And again, they elusively said, we can't tell you who the artist is, production company, whatever. I was like, hey, it's fine. Like, your gear works. You guys are legit human beings. I'm cool with it. And so they hand me a box, and on the box are two initials.
And before you say it, just to clear it with legal, are we allowed to say it?
Hey, the box said it.
Okay.
So the box said TS. As like, TS. It's like, well, I can think of one TS.
We are in Nashville.
In the industry. So that definitely gave me a clue. And then 6 months later, again, it's kind of like clockwork. And he said, like, we take this stuff out on tour, we do one tour with it, and then the next tour we upgrade to the next thing, or there's just a different production, whatever it is. So we've got this gear. So finally on this third one, he said, you know what? I'm so tired of just bringing all this gear to you. Can you just come to our warehouse? And so I said, sure. And so he gave me the address, and I went to a large warehouse space and walked into TS Productions. And that was a fun moment there was like a full crew of full-time people working in this warehouse that are on, constant paid full-time staff of TS. And there's an airplane in there, a literal airplane. And there are just, cases and racks and stuff just filled with just gorgeous gear. And so in this moment, in this purchase, we were buying a whole bunch of Axe Effects units, which are basically Kemper's, but it's a different company that makes these guitar modeling amps. And this artist band use a ton of these, and then a ton of Focusrite 410 producer packs, and just all this beautiful stuff. And Blake, I know the name Focusrite. It's kind of like twinkling in your mind.
I love Focusrite. Every time we get in some rat gear from Focusrite, they've got the prettiest gear. Their colors are the most imaginative of all.
So
of
what
the
was the
rack
color
units.
of the one that you liked, though?
Oh, I loved the red one.
The red. So they have a red series. This wasn't the red series. This was the blue and yellow series, which again, it's great stuff. They have wonderful color schemes. So just a mountain of this beautiful Focusrite gear that normally, and our guest will tell us a lot about Focusrite today.
Oh, good.
Normally the stuff is in the highest end studios in the world, but when you're TS, you get to use whatever you want. So there's all these just like extremely high end audio production, preamps, compressors, EQs for their stage racks. Like these aren't even at front of house. They're sitting on stage.
Oh, wow.
So this is the kind of level of people that, we tend to play with these days. Like we're kind of a big deal.
Oh, if only that were true.
I mean, TS and TW, we work together. We're just mono like that.
I'm going to pass this whole episode's audio through a compressor just to make sure we're okay.
I didn't disclose anything.
All right. Just saying. And is that the story?
That's the story.
Oh, man. All right. Well, in the blank space that was the air in that moment of my freak out, let's move on to our guest. So now we've got someone sitting in front of us who apparently will talk about TS, although, again, I don't know that we can.
He's going to talk about Focusrite.
He's going to talk about Focusrite. There we go. So let me introduce him. He's got 4 Grammy wins. He works both in music and audio post-production. He's mixed for MWS, Josh Groban, and Charlie Daniels. Jennifer Nettles asked me to, or this is him. So Jennifer Nettles asked him to take 280 hertz out of her voice in the headphones. And when I told her I couldn't route EQ to her headphones due to signal flow, she stormed out of the room for an hour before resuming.
Ooh, you don't want to mess with Jennifer Nettles.
I hope that's the lie. Vocal performance major, then switched to audio production when he saw his first recording session happen between the producer and the engineers. That must have been a fun one.
Does have a beautiful voice.
He built a surround system as a high school senior for a theater performance before he knew what surround even was. He's currently mixing in immersive tech, Dolby Atmos, and Sony 360, which is opening up into the live and broadcast avenue. He's done broadcast mixing favored over live. Oh, broadcast mixing is his favored over live experience. Okay, so that feels like a red herring. Now introducing Rob Burrell.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So normally you don't lie. You told us you're a truth teller.
Yeah, I don't lie. Little
But
bit
in
of
this-
George Washington.
In this moment, you inserted a doozy somewhere in here.
Yes, that's correct.
Toby, are we going to get held accountable in heaven for inciting sin on the podcast every episode?
Hey, it's their decision to lie. We're just encouraging it.
Okay.
Oh, I said I couldn't come up with one, and you guys helped facilitate the way to come up with a lie.
So not only did we make him lie, we taught him how to lie.
That's right.
Teach
Okay.
a liar in the way they shall go.
So let's get to this. 4 Grammy wins. I believe it. Like, he's done some legit stuff.
Okay, this is your buddy for context. I've just
I
met
know,
Rob
but,
today,
like,
so I'm going to lean on you.
Rob doesn't normally sit around just talking about his accolades. Like, we
And
talk
it's-
about life and
Only with my family.
Yeah.
We talk about it every evening.
Is that like
Okay.
a calm app session that just takes her right to sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. And she just marvels at the wonder that is me. Yeah.
I don't think the Grammys are a lie either because they're at the top. The first thing he put out.
I know that's and I feel like he usually brings a Grammy with him to church on Sundays to just carry with him, but I've never seen him with 4, but I'd believe it.
The better question is if Toby will have any friends left after they're all on the podcast when we make them
probably
out to
not.
be
That's
this.
fine. I've got so many friends that
You
it's
make them.
overkill.
You make the misconception that we are friends indeed.
Oh,
man.
that cuts deep.
Yeah, yeah.
Man,
Let's
he's
see.
lying to me, and then he's okay. Josh Groban is a big name. He's never mentioned that to me, which I feel like maybe he would have, but maybe he wouldn't. Like I know other artists he's worked with. I know he likes broadcast mixing, I assume, because every time he mixes at church, they stick him in the broadcast room.
All right, let's cut that one off too.
But
That one's
what if
definitely not.
what if he actually prefers the live, but he's just no good at it?
Okay.
this
Kind
is
of like
tricky.
me with chess. I'm terrible at it, but I have a lot of fun when I play.
I'm going to just guess the broadcast mixing favored over live, because maybe he's just sneaking one in. Maybe he just loves to mix live, but just doesn't get the opportunity as much because
Okay.
he's been pigeonholed as an artist, as a creative.
That is what we talked about, pigeonholing in certain venues, like of getting in, like you're in creative endeavors. Suddenly you do 2 of this one thing and you're stuck there. We talked about that beforehand.
Okay, Blake, you got to make a decision.
I'm going to go with Jennifer Nettles because he put her on blast. And if that is true, then I can't wait to hear the real story.
Okay,
There
Rob.
you go. All right. So here's the reveal. It's part of the Jennifer Nettles story that is incorrect. Yeah.
All
So
right.
the story is I was recording her.
And real quick, Rob,
Yeah,
you made Blake be right. And this is so disappointing.
Is his
That's
head
the
gonna
real
swell?
sin.
Is he gonna is he gonna be impossible to
Our
work with?
whole relationship is built on me assuming that Blake is never right and I'm always right. Okay.
And that's
Sorry.
how you keep your thumb
This is
on
just
him.
such a
just keep him
disappointment. Yeah.
pushed
You got to
down.
throttle
Yeah,
this much
that's right.
enthusiasm.
Apparently, we're not
That's right.
friends in actuality. Blake is right.
That's
I mean,
right. So
okay.
there it is.
This is the best episode for me so far.
That's right. I'm right today. Well, Jennifer Nettles, first, an absolute blast to work with. Of course, we've all heard her voice, and man, there's a lot of voices out there that take some studio work to make them sound like you hear them in the end.
Like Adele, you know.
Yes, like she's
Yeah.
no good. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Jennifer is a rock star and is incredible. So she did indeed ask me after singing the first verse of this song, said, "Hey, would you mind taking 280 hertz out of my voice?" And I've got
Where
to
did
be
you come up
honest.
with 280?
In 25, this was 25 years in. I've been doing this for 29 years. 25 years in, I'd never had an artist ask me for a particular frequency to be removed from.
I mean, you take 280 out of the kick drum. But
Well, yeah,
out of a voice.
and 280 out of her voice. Well, and I have my suspicions that we can talk about as to why that was, but the truth is, I did oblige her. I removed 280. She said, "Thank you, that's perfect," and we went on to cut the song.
Now,
Great.
did
She
you
did not
actually
storm out of the room.
remove 280,
I
or did
did.
you just look like you turned the knob like engineers do
So
sometimes?
I was around 280, but I knew what she was dealing with. So singers really love to hear the upper mid range and top end of their vocal when they're cutting a vocal for 2 reasons. One is just to be able to hear the articulation. Second is you can really get your pitch center best with kind of the upper mid range. And so I think probably what she was hearing is a little bit of that warmth in the low mids. It was probably masking a little bit of her pitch center, which she did not have a problem with even before I removed it, by the way. So I pulled out, I think I honestly pulled out somewhere in the mid 300s.
Okay.
But I knew immediately what she was talking about. And whether, my guess also is that somewhere at some point, she had, a live guy took that out of the wedge for her or something, and she said, "Oh, I like that." And so 280 stuck in her mind. I don't think she's, a frequency
Which
savant.
totally depends on the ears she's wearing.
It very much does. But we also do whatever we need to make an artist feel comfortable. And the move I made her feel more comfortable, and therefore
She did
I'm
not
happy
storm
to do
out.
it. She did not storm out, and we cut a killer vocal and had a blast.
I mean, our goal today is to get Blake to storm out.
That's right.
But I can't because
Well-
Toby always keeps his doors locked.
Well, if you just storm towards the corner and just stand there with your back to us, that's, kind of the same effect.
I hear that would not make for great audio.
And our producer actually takes 280 through 20,000 hertz out of Blake's voice.
That's right.
Oh,
He
you
just-
got to.
just-
I'm
yeah.
basically
cuts
screaming
it.
into
That's
this.
right.
Yeah.
Cuts
When-
it right out.
When you were mixing for her, were you mixing at your house? Tell us about your setup.
Okay, so that I did not record her at my house, but I did mix at my house, and it was at the house that I am not currently in. So, but my current setup, very much the same. Current setup is actually Pro Tools based studio with Avid control surfaces, lots of outboard gear. I work in very much a hybrid environment of all digital and lovely analog as well. And I am a Dolby certified Atmos immersive mix room and have just signed a deal with Sony to do their Sony 360 system in my room also.
So tell us about the Sony 360 system. This sounds interesting. What does that entail?
So it is their version of immersive, and their setup, the quick crash course of Dolby Atmos, is based on a 7.1 bed system on the horizontal plane where your ears are. And then there are height speakers. So the basic setup for being able to mix Dolby Atmos is a 7.1.4, which is 7 main layer channels, 4 overhead channels, and then the .1 is the LFE
So
channel.
does that mean you have literally 12 speakers?
Oh, I have literally more than that because that's the minimum, and I don't like to do anything the minimum.
No.
No, I actually have an 11.1.4 set up.
Okay.
So currently I have 16 speakers to do Atmos.
And I'm just imagining, I remember an episode of The Simpsons where Homer sets up a quad system in his van. And is that basically the same thing?
It's the same thing as quad. They tried that in the 70s and it didn't work. But Atmos is working. But the point of immersive is to let you kind of wrap yourself in music. Now, I do a lot of studio things, but obviously we're talking about live as well. The live music experience is like none other, right? You're in a room hearing music amplified. You have crowd around you. You have
Jennifer Nettles.
You've got surfaces that are reflecting sound, and we can feel this viscerally in our bodies. Now, there are ways to have that same experience with stereo speakers in a listening environment. Headphones gets even more difficult because you're hearing it, but it's injected straight into your ears. You're not having the same physical experience. But what's amazing with immersive is that even in the headphone version, you suddenly are transported to a space, which is pretty amazing because music, for me, the whole reason I do what I do, music is an experience. It's an emotion. It's a way that we get angry or we relieve our anger. We get happy. We get sad. There's so much to it, the way that we react as humans. And I think that the immersive technologies are something that is just going to make the musical experience even better.
So is immersive translating into the live world? Are there?
Yes. So there are, both with Dolby and with Sony, there are venues that exist now. There have been clubs in Europe that are Dolby Atmos based. They've been doing that for 3 or 4
clubs in Europe at least.
That's right.
Once
when
a quarter.
You know that when you hop on your jet and you go to the Dolby Atmos clubs,
it is immersive.
Yeah, it is immersive.
I mean, I just get on the church gear jet.
That's right.
Yes.
We bought it when we were in that
That's
hangar
right.
for
That's
TS.
right.
We
From
said, we'll take your
TS.
gear and the jet.
Thanks, TS. So Rob,
yes.
where'd you get your start? Like, what lit the fire of audio under you?
Yeah. So my start, the background is, grew up in a musical family, not professionally, just loved music and played multiple instruments. So I started singing. I sang in public for the first time. I sang in church when I was 2 years old, actually. My dad set me up on the piano, and the pianist played,
So
and
like
I sang
Jessica
a Gaither
Rabbit
song.
style?
Yes.
Right on the piano.
I was just really late,
The red
stretched right out
dress and-
there, stretched right out. Yeah, licking up all of the glory that I could in church. So
Were you like, did your parents say like you were just a naturally born ham? Like you had no problem getting up there and performing?
Yeah, I did not have a problem getting in front of people. Nerves were not an issue. I was like, yeah, give me that microphone. Let me at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great. So I sang "I Am a Promise" by the Gaithers.
Oh, you got to do some Gaithers.
That's right. You have to. Yeah, this was 1975.
So Friends Are Friends Forever was not out yet.
No, Friends Are Friends Forever did not exist yet.
Yeah, because that was the song you sing.
Yes, but I have sung that many times. I've told Smitty that, but I have sung it many times prior to me meeting him and working with him. So, but spent my entire life playing multiple instruments, played French horn for 17 years, played keys from as early as I could bang on a piano. Singing was kind of my main thing, but I also played a few woodwinds and played trombone, trumpet, flugelhorn, so I could be in jazz band because there's no French horn allowed in jazz band. And so all that took me to college, where I went as a vocal performance major because I wanted to be a rock star.
Obviously.
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
Doesn't. Rob, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Yes, and you know this. Yeah, you know this for a fact. Yes, that it might be one of the great lies. Yeah, but while I was at college in New York, I'm from Maine originally. Literally grew up in the middle of the woods, 45 minutes from Canada. Grew up in the middle of the woods, a little town of 4,000 people. Went to New York City to go to college. Two of my professors, my theory professor and our jazz band leader, who taught my music business class and a couple other classes I was in, both took me under their wing a little bit. They knew I was passionate about music. And at that point, I was kind of into synth tech, which, of course, now revolves around computers. But back in the olden days...
Yeah, you could actually turn knobs on a Moog.
Exactly. We had multiple keyboards with an outboard sequencer that had a little tiny LCD screen, and things happened in real time. And so I had a nice little setup.
Yeah. Did you have the Ensoniq?
No, I didn't have any Ensoniq. I really wanted, at the time, their ESQ1 sampler, but
with the floppy disks and everything.
With the floppy disks,
Yes.
I mean, man, if you could store it. But what I had my first real rig was a Kurzweil K1000 SE, which
I think
was
we literally
beast.
have one of those in our warehouse right now.
They're so great, and they still feel great to play, and they sounded great. And then I had the legendary Korg M1. It had just come out while I was in high school. It had been out for about a year when I got it. And that kind of changed the game in music production. It changed the game in synths, both in its architecture and the way it worked. It was groundbreaking. But anyway, so I was a synth junkie. So these professors said, hey, we're going to let you do some stuff outside of class, come to some sessions with us, because they both produced outside of teaching. And then they actually let me have a room in the music building to set up my gear. So I actually did some kind of MIDI seminars and workshops within the music department for them. So that was fun. But one evening, my music business professor told me, look, I know you want to be a rock star, but you should really look at the life of a background vocalist. Now, again, the music industry has changed a lot. This was the early 90s. And you could print money in the music business at that time.
Obviously.
It was nuts.
It was straight out of Compton back then.
Pre-Napster, and there was no streaming of music, and you had to buy it, which meant that money was coming in as fast as it was going out.
I mean, was that when DC Talk was cutting their teeth?
So DC Talk, yeah. I mean, they were probably on their third record at that point. And yeah, so it was... everything was huge. So he said, they have a really great gig. You've got to be incredibly talented, but it's a great living. So he said, I'm cutting background vocals on an album. You need to come to the session and just check it out. And I'd never been in a real studio before. I'd never seen a session happen. I really didn't know how records were made, honestly. And so I go in that night to Acme Recording Studios in Mamaroneck, New York, where they had just recorded and mixed the Spin Doctors Pocket Full of Kryptonite record,
With
which
the-
was massive.
The stairwell reverb, right?
Yes. Yeah. They had, this studio was known for some particular sounds that they were able to do because of the way they used the recording space, which again was something that has kind of fueled me to this day in my love for spaces, not just gear, but they had Whitney Houston records on the wall because she had recorded a bunch there. So I go in, I'm kind of starstruck walking in, but then I watched the producer and the engineer as they musically and technically guided the background vocalists into what I had heard on records for years. And I thought, oh, it just happens.
Yeah, it's easy.
Right. It's no problem. I watched that and I realized that night that was the perfect blend of music and tech. And that's what I was made for. And so after wanting to be a singer since I was 2 years old, and I was 18 at the time, I said, okay, I want to be on this side of the glass. What do I need to do? So the two professors, kind of told me, well, you've got choices. You've got New York, LA, and Nashville, because back then that was really all there was. So basically, they kind of pointed me to Belmont, where the former head of the music department at the school I was at had come to Belmont to be the head of the music department of Belmont. And they said they've just put in a $5 million studio and all this. Again, that's nothing special these days because
but back
every
then-
community college even has a studio. But back then, there were maybe 4 universities in the whole country that had studios. So it was a
And they were probably in LA, New York, and Nashville.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then Full Sail. Full Sail
Sure.
had just come into existence around then. But for non-specific schools, there just weren't. So transferred to Belmont, met Michael W. Smith's engineer, co-producer while I was there at school. He kind of took me under his wing. And, within a year and a half, I was so busy on sessions that I quit college. And there you go.
What?
That's
28
that is the
years
dream.
later. That's
What?
right. That's
a production
the dream.
guy didn't finish college
Yes,
in order to get into the
exactly.
industry? That is
Exactly.
shocking.
You go to
Yes.
college to be useful. You were
That's
too
right.
useful
That's
to be
right.
in college
I was
anymore.
too.
I'm not saying
Yes.
everyone should go to college. I'm saying
That's
it's
right.
totally fine to leave when that happens.
Yes, and I do not endorse.
Okay, Rob. So we
quitting
got a
college.
lot of live guys who listen,
Yes.
and they're probably kind of judging you a little bit. They're like, studio world, like
Yes.
I don't care. And I know, like, when you come to our church, and you've been a faithful part of our church for a long time, and you're part of the production crew sometimes,
Yes.
they always stick you in that broadcast
Yes.
booth. Is that because you're no good at live because
Yeah,
you
I'm
can't do
horrible.
it? Or,
Horrible.
give us the, is just a different skill
so,
set?
So there were a lot of years that I did mix live in that room when, as you know now, our front of house console is on the main floor. The broadcast booth is in its own room, but the front of house console used to be up in the crow's nest.
Okay.
Up
What
up
was
behind.
that console at that point?
That was a Yamaha DM2000, which is
Oh.
actually a recording
Whoa,
console.
Yeah. That's not a live console.
Yes, but it worked great for the way we utilized it up there.
And we do have a DM2000 in the warehouse.
There you go. DM2000 still sounds amazing, warm and punchy, and like crazy flexible. I mean, what you could do just inside that console was, again, Yamaha was kind of groundbreaking. I was on the front edge again of digital consoles, the Yamaha O2R, which was the predecessor to the
Little version.
DM2000. It's where it started, and the Mackie Digital 8 bus. I was one of the first guys here in Nashville to get my hands on them, learn them, and so I spent a lot of time going around town teaching people how to use those consoles. So when they put that in, and I got asked if that would be a way I'd want to serve, I didn't really want to, because I do feel very comfortable in the studio world. That's where I am. Michael W. asked me one time if I would consider going out on the road with him because his longtime engineer was coming off the road, and I politely declined, and I appreciated the
You
vote of
didn't want to
confidence.
ride around in a bus for 9 months?
Well, I tell you what, there's no better gig than the Smitty gig. I don't think. He treats his people great, and it's as life and family friendly a touring situation as you'll probably find. But what I told him, I said, man, I appreciate it, but because I've not trained in that world, I'm happy with the mix that I can achieve. But the whole room tuning, the tech behind it, the understanding the intricacies of walking into a new place every night, and the conversations that have to happen with the union crew and the electricians, like that, I had no idea. And so I was kind of like, I might be able to get the mix good, but I'm doing you a disservice because I am not equipped for this.
You don't live in that world.
Right. It did not feel right. So flip that to being asked to mix at church. Well, I knew the console well. And so I thought, well, there's no setup. The room's tuned. The room's tweaked. That's not something
You know
that has
how to
happen.
take 280 hertz
That's
out
right.
of the
I can take
wedges.
280. When Jennifer Nettles comes
That's
to
right.
guest sing at the worship service, I can take 280 out. Watch me. So basically, that was kind of a gig that I did, once or twice a month for a good handful of time. I took a break actually because our kids got old enough, they got into middle school and they were old enough to help out teaching Sunday school classes. And so we decided to do that all as a family. So
and
that
were you teaching MIDI seminars in the kids program at church?
Yes. I was telling them how to take 280 hertz
That's right.
out of vocals because Fisher Price microphones, they have this huge bump right around 280. And so,
obviously. And they're looking at you. Why do you have acne?
That's right. Yeah. What's wrong with you, man?
That's a lot of advancements nowadays with Fisher Price.
Yes, they're pretty
Fisher
high
Price
tech.
is on the cutting edge of the MIDI.
They have the
market.
best multi-track setup.
And they make lighting boards too, Blake. So.
Oh, well, then I'm in. That's my guy. So when you're not at church mixing and when you're not teaching the little kids how to take 280 hertz out of a Fisher Price, tell us about broadcast mixing for the CMAs.
Yeah. So I should clarify this. I actually am not the one mixing the CMAs. I'm part of the mix team. Yeah. Everything. You could should I just leave now?
You're
Should I just
out
leave
of the
now?
podcast. This is an embarrassment.
So here's how the CMAs work. And I'm happy to share tech details too, because, we're nerdy like that. But the CMAs are mixed, again, much like what we talked about. So I do some broadcast mixing. Again, studio is my forte because it's where I've spent most of my time. So the guys that mix the CMAs are actually legends in the broadcast. My buddy Jay from New York, he has mixed Saturday Night Live's bands almost since the beginning of Saturday Night Live.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, what show is that?
Yeah,
what is
Sunday
that?
Night Live.
That's right. Everyone's sleeping
okay.
because you got to get up for service the next
That's right.
morning. But there is a little show called Saturday Night Live that has had. Yeah, so Jay is a freak, a ridiculous engineer. So there's two components to this, as there is. Whether you're a lighting guy, whether you're a front of house guy, monitor guy, broadcast guy, studio guy, the people that are leaving you in their hands have to have confidence in you. So Jay, and there's a couple other guys. Jay has been the guy that's been there every year. A couple other guys have come in and out. And again, they're the who's who of live records and live broadcast events. But when Justin Timberlake knows that Jay is in that seat, he's done live records with Jay. He's done Grammys with Jay because Jay also mixes the Grammy. The confidence level is there so that they're not afraid of what they're going to sound like on television. Mm. And that's the important thing. So the two guys
is already out of their ears.
It's already gone.
Yes.
They already know. They're like, I don't even think about 280.
At this point, I don't know if we have any hertz left. We've
That's
taken
right,
so many
that's
out.
right. It all hurts. So that is why, I mean, there's probably other reasons why I don't mix the CMAs, but the guys sitting in the chairs are there for a good reason. They have earned that seat.
They know that DM2000 like the back of their hand.
They know the DM2000. One of the company that Jay owns out of New York, Music Mix Mobile, co-owns with a couple buddies of mine. One of their early trucks had a DM2000 in it that I actually hired, and I recorded and mixed one of Smitty's live DVDs on the DM2000. So see, full circle back to the DM2000.
It always comes back to that DM2000.
Right. Now their trucks are all outfitted with Lavo consoles, and they're all surround. It's surround.
What about Fisher-Price?
No, you know what? They leave the Fisher-Price in the flight pack.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so that when Beyonce needs a flight rig, Fisher-Price goes out the door.
Well, I'm real curious about these 4 Grammy wins now.
Oh yeah,
because I've got to go back to scrolling up on this doc here.
Okay,
did you win for Beyonce, or was that?
Yeah, Beyonce definitely. Yeah. Well, sorry, and let me say this real quick just to clarify. So I am a Pro Tools op on the CMA awards. So my job is to work with the mixer as they're rehearsing. I record all the rehearsals. And that way we can play back and fine tune the mix after the fact. So that's kind of the role that I play there.
Got it.
I've been doing it for like 10 years.
You got a mouse and a screen in front of you.
Got a mouse and a screen. Yes. Yeah. So that's the deal. Okay. So Grammys. Yes. So my 4 Grammys are for, my first one was for Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir.
Ooh, nice.
Who I've done multiple records with. My second one was for Michael W. Smith, who I've also done obscene amounts of. We have made so much music. He was the first artist I ever worked with while I was still at college. Worked on his "I'll Lead You Home" record that came out in 1995.
Did you go West, young man?
No, I was in high school when Go West came out. So no, I didn't. So there was after Go West. There was one record in between that and when I met Smitty, and
it's not a bad place to just step into.
No,
in your beginning production years. I'm going to work with Michael W. Smith for a long time.
And again, that was one of not just work, but mentorship as a human, mentorship.
You mentored Smitty?
Yes. Yeah. I really, he's come a long way. I'm really proud of the character building that we've done together.
I feel like his career might actually make it at this point.
Yeah, he's on the bubble, but if he keeps working hard.
Yeah, if he just gets that one hit.
I think he will probably make it. Yeah. So yeah, Smitty was the second one. The third one was again for Brooklyn Tabernacle on a different record, and then the fourth one was a Latin Grammy for an artist named Alex Campos.
Nice.
So,
did you get to go to any of these Grammy Awards?
I did not go to any of them.
Okay.
No.
Wait, what? You didn't accept it
I
on
have
the stage?
never. No. So for my role for engineer, I would not have been invited on stage anyway. The only time an engineer goes on stage is for album of the year and best engineered album. So
if you're not Steve Lillywhite,
you're not invited up very much. The producers get to go up more than the engineers do, but and all of the awards that I won, they're the kind that are given away in the afternoon, not on the main award show. So
Blake, did you receive your Grammys on stage, or?
I mean, I was at some ceremony where they gave me something on stage.
Was it for TS?
Yes,
yeah,
I was in the posse that went on the stage and was like, hey, we're in a crew. I still feel like we're going to get sued for mentioning that story.
Okay, so circling back to TS.
Yes.
And all this Focusrite gear.
Yes.
You are a Focusrite junkie, are you not?
Yes, I am. And you had a bunch of ISA series.
Yes.
Is the blue and yellow series, the blue and yellow and gray. That I actually had some sneakers.
As Blake pronounced it, ISA.
Yes,
there we
ISA.
go.
Yes. You can't see my shoes, but I am a Nike Air Force One junkie as well, and so now you should be able to get some good Nike endorsements for
obviously.
your show.
They're actually paying for a sponsorship.
Yeah, well,
on this
I thought
episode.
so. Yeah, so I custom build my
but
Air
you're
Force
wearing
Ones.
an Adidas sweatshirt. So.
Yeah, well, my feet are Nikes. My heart is Adidas.
Oh, man.
So
Nike just took
their
funding.
Took a hit. Yeah. So I did make some Focusrite ISA edition Air Force Ones that are gray and yellow and blue.
Oh, that's
and,
fun.
And they're pretty snazzy. Yeah.
And were you not recently in an article about?
I was.
Focusrite?
I am a. I have had a love affair with Focusrite gear from the beginning of my career.
It's too right to be focused wrong.
Yes, that's right. You can't be focused wrong. It's focused right for a reason. Yeah. So, the fast Focusrite history is Sir George Martin, who,
Sure,
little
the Beatles.
little Beatles group, you've heard of them.
Maybe.
He
Is Smitty mentoring them?
he's he's the fifth Beatle.
Ah, got it.
He is the fifth Beatle, actually. Yeah. So, George Martin in the early 80s wanted a console built for him that would be just pristine and sonically brilliant. And so all of his studios that he owned had Neve consoles. So he went to Rupert Neve and said, "Hey, this is what I want." And it was a chance for Rupert to, we revere old Neve gear and it's great.
But it's got a sound.
For most of those designers, a lot of it, for them is frustration because, they had to keep the accountants happy. And so what they wanted to do, they couldn't do because this component would be too much. And so, it's funny, we revere some of these things and a lot of those designers look at it and go, "I'm proud of it, but I wish, if only," they had a wish list. Well, so at the time, he created the Focusrite 110 module, which was a preamp and EQ that just had an extremely wide bandwidth and headroom, and it was beautiful.
What color was it?
And it was the gray and blue and yellow.
So the Red Series came later. But
Yes,
we
Red
started
Series
with gray, blue,
came.
and yellow.
Red Series came after that happened. So the original was they were modules that would fit into the Neve consoles, but then they built just a handful of the Focusrite Forte console, which they also had a version called the Forte Studio, which I got to work on a good bit at the Music Mill Studios in Nashville. And it was the same console, just did not have dynamics on every channel, no gate and compressor on every channel like the big console. But the big one was over $1 million, for the console. And this was in the...
Hey, you have 4 Grammys, so...
That's right, no problem. Well, this was in the mid-'80s where,
you only had 2 Grammys at that point.
That's right. I was just a baby Grammy winner. And so at that point, these consoles were crazy expensive. They then extracted those modules out and put them in outboard gear. That became the first rendition of the ISA series with the 110s and the 115s, followed by the 215. Then the Red Range came out. It was called the Red Range, which is what you love, the anodized red faceplate. It's
beautiful color.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And they sounded great. And they were a little bit more towards the older Neve sound in a lot of ways, almost bridging the gap in between the what is now vintage Neve and the ISA, which still had a lot of Rupert's character in it.
Bob Clearmountain loved his Red 3.
Yes, Red 3. So everybody, Red 3 became really the Lord Alges made the Red 3 kind of the bus compressor of choice. And so then everybody and their brother wants to own one and use it because it's got to make every mix magic. Well, it is a magical piece, but I tell you, it won't make you sound like Clear Mountain or the Lord Alges. Those guys are special.
Or Smitty.
Or Smitty, right. You can't. But I used my Red 3 on a lot of Smitty mixes, so there you go,
So you can sound like Smitty a little
That's right.
bit.
Just
a
little
touch.
Bit. Just a little bit.
Touch of magic.
So, fast forward to 2 years ago, and I kind of met the Focusrite guys because I was looking at doing this Dolby Atmos room, and they had an interface that I thought, okay, this could be a killer backbone for my studio. And so I approached them. I just kind of told them how much I loved Focusrite gear, and I wanted to check this out. And so they were able to get one to me. And I fell in love with it sonically, function wise, everything. And then that began a great relationship with them to where I am, one of their, I'm a Focusrite artist.
You're basically like Nike has Michael Jordan.
That's right. I am
Focusrite
Michael
has
Jordan.
Rob Burrell.
I'm Michael Jordan for Focusrite. That's exactly
In all
it.
seriousness, is that what it is, though? Like you're kind of a brand ambassador for them?
Yes, I am an ambassador. Yes, that is exactly what I am. I don't get paid. This is not a paid endorsement. It's just, it was birthed out of my love for Focusrite gear and being a champion, wanting to be a champion for what they're doing, because they continue to work to a level of excellence sonically with all their gear that I just admire. So, yeah.
So you get some free gear, and then they get...
I get a little bit of gear and or a discount, and then I get to talk about what I already love about them. There's nothing is forced. It's all organic.
Oh,
because
no. Look, this is very common.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of that. That people do. Is they're not the only company that I do or have done that for, but all of those have been birthed out of my personal love for it. And
It's like our deal with Fisher Price. It's
right.
our personal love for
you
it.
came to them and said, that little telephone with the eyes that blink as it rolls across the floor.
got something special.
Oh shoot, I just aged myself out. Yeah. But yeah, so the Focusrite articles were talking about both my passion for their preamps and EQs, and kind of the history that I've had with them personally for 28 years, but also their new red range of interfaces, which is what my entire...
The Scarlet.
Yeah, Scarlet is great. The Scarlet, the Claret, those are kind of the prosumer lines, but they have so much of the tech from the top end. I have some of their smaller boxes too that I've had long before my deal with them, because I'll use them if I have to go record a vocal somewhere. I have to go and I need a small setup. They're bulletproof function wise, and they sound amazing. And that's just...
We've worked with a number of churches that have plenty of RedNet gear.
Yes.
in their
Yeah, and that's what
broadcast setup,
my gear is, all the RedNet series,
Yeah,
the
it's
Red
great
Range and
stuff.
RedNet.
Yeah.
It sounds great and it works,
I love that. I love Focusrite just from the look. I
Yes.
couldn't do anything with it, but I was
You
like...
know nothing about what it does, but it's
That's
just so
right.
pretty.
But it's pretty.
And I think that speaks to how well it's made. Can you make
Yes.
something that is awesome and beautiful?
Yes, and they can.
So we end every episode with a tech takeaway. So I'm going to vamp for a little bit as I explain it to give you a second to think of yours. But essentially, this can be philosophical. This can be technical. But something where, every tech has their best practices. They've got their checklist. They know what they're doing. What's something weird, though, that you've just discovered from a moment? Maybe it's the 280 Hertz. But what's something where you were like, yeah, this is a thing that I love doing that makes my life better, that most people wouldn't think of because you only stumble upon that strange alchemy through random things that come in life.
That is a great question.
Oh, thank you. I wrote it myself.
I love that
I didn't name
question.
it, but I wrote it.
It
That's
isn't
right.
red though, so
Yeah,
That's right. Okay, so I refuse to be stumped here.
Oh, that's okay. Me and
that's
Toby
right.
can vamp for as much time
our
as
producer
you
is
need.
playing the Jeopardy theme
That's
as we
right.
speak. So
I don't know that we have the rights to that, but if we do, yes, let's play it.
But by golly, if I sing it, it's not your
I
responsibility.
mean, you were a vocal performance major. At some
I
point,
was, so I could Alex Trebek this thing like nobody's business.
Something about fair use in there.
Yes, there's something. Yeah, as long as it's a sample of under 30 seconds, I think you're safe. Wow. Happy accidents are one of the best things in audio, period. And that's across the board, whether you're in the live venue, broadcast venue, studio. So I'm going to speak in a general sense then and not specific, because there's nothing coming to mind. But what I will say is the best way to have those things happen is to not get so set in your ways that the checklist or the procedure is. Don't box yourself in with that. Okay.
You're not an airline pilot.
Right. So we have rules that need to follow, and we should always have our systems that will get us out of trouble. But be adventurous and be aware that, if something hits you and go, oh, that's messed up. Can I tell a story?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm going to tell a story.
We love stories.
Okay. So here's a story involving Michael W. Smith. I have worked with other people, believe it or not. Okay, so in 2003, Smitty took me and his band out to California, and we set up for a week at George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch,
What?
which was basically heaven on earth.
This is not your lie.
Yeah, no, this is not my lie. This
You
is all
saved
true.
this for the end on
Yeah,
purpose.
that's right. Saved it for the best for last. So, and we stayed on the property for a week. I mean, they had bicycles with Skywalker license plates
Oh,
that
man.
we
Come
would
on.
drive it. Yeah, I have so many
All of
stories
the
about
tech
this.
nerds listening to this right now are just like,
Yes. Yeah. So, would see George driving into his office in his BMW 750 in the morning. And then his office had a library that looks like something out of Indiana Jones. And there were literally like the shrunken skull from Indiana Jones and there were lightsabers. And I mean, these were the actual, so it was pretty great. In addition to that, they have one of the most advanced studios, on the planet,
We can
both
imagine.
for film and music. They brought us into one of their dub stages where they mix films, and they had to shut all the screens off. You're not allowed to see anything contractually, but they were mixing Finding Nemo in that room at the time. But we were over in the scoring stage, which they built for recording huge orchestras, but we were just there as a rock and roll band to have some fun and spread out and just get inspired. So here's my happy accident story that I almost shut it down because I was thinking about what I should and shouldn't do. Because it was a massive room. I mean, this room was probably, I would say it was close to 100 feet long, 60-ish feet wide. And we've just got, we've got a guitar player, a drummer, a keyboard player, a bass player, and
a French
Smitty.
horn?
That's right, French horn player. Yes, me. I was playing in the control room. So it was huge. So in addition to miking instruments, we had to have mics up for talkback so that the musicians could hear themselves in the headphones. So a typical setup for a talkback is to grab a microphone and jam it through a compressor so that it brings up the level if they're, because they're not talking in it like we are. It might be 8 feet away from them. Well, the talkback mic that I set up over where the guitarist and bass player were seated was actually a vintage Neumann 87, which is not what's usually used for talkback.
Not for talkback.
But at Skywalker, that's what you use
Why
for
not?
talkback because you can.
Yeah, they don't have 57s.
That's
to sing
right.
around.
And it was going through a vintage 1176
Oh, gosh.
compressor because why not?
That's just cruel.
Yeah. Most studios, you're putting an SM57 through a Behringer compressor and calling it a day, but this was Skywalker. So basically what happened is I was in the control room muting and unmuting that mic in between takes so that I could hear what they were discussing to see if I needed to change anything different. I'm just aware of the musical decisions. Well, I was making a change and they had finished talking, but we weren't ready to roll yet. And Ray, the drummer, hit the snare drum and that thing exploded through the talkback mic.
Through a U87,
U87 through an 1176
Wow, I
that
bet
was
it sounded
probably about
amazing.
30 feet from the drummer.
Yeah.
But we also had set up some baffles in between the guitar station and the drummer. So it wasn't direct. It was the snare flying up into this massive room with 50-foot ceiling, 60 feet wide. The volume of, the cubic volume is huge. Not to mention the fact that I was able to change the reverb time of the room on every song because all of the panels on the wall and ceiling were motorized. So I would change the reverb time of the room each song we recorded. But
it's Skywalker. You do what you want.
it's Skywalker. So he hit that, and I immediately was like, that is bonkers. So I asked the assistant engineer, route that to a track, and we're printing this sucker top to bottom. So basically, the initial reaction was to quick mute it until it registered in my head how amazing it sounded. And that sound became intricate to the drum sound on that record, on the mixes.
That's so
I used
fun.
it heavily. So
That is a happy accident.
it was a happy accident.
So for all our church techs out there, buy a
Yes.
vintage U87
That's
1176,
right.
put it
Yes.
30 feet away from that snare
That's right.
drum
Put it in the
in your
middle
church
of-
service. That's going to work out real well.
And if you
gonna be
don't have the
awesome.
budget for that, just continue
That's
to
right.
stay adventurous.
Just
That's right.
call Uncle George.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
He'll
Well,
come
and
out of his office and
and things like that. When you are in a live situation, you could take it to the point of, hey, just be aware before you by default gate your toms. Listen to what's happening when the snare jumps into the tom mics and hits the tom compressors. What does that sound like mixed in? Like maybe the gate's not the thing. Maybe maybe the overheads are important to the snare as well. There's a lot of ways that you can carry that just by going, I know what the safe place is, but I'm going to adventure and keep an open mind, not be afraid. So
Well, Rob, we really appreciate you coming on, man. That is a killer story. That might hold the title for best tech away for a long time.
that's definitely going to be all time, like the Hall of Fame right
When
there.
you
Hall of
said,
Fame.
can I tell a story? I was like looking at time and I was like, let's just say yes. And then you bust out Skywalker Ranch.
Everyone's still listening.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. So just thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Thanks for listening. And hey, congratulations on surviving Sunday. If you happen to make it through next Sunday as well, join us again for your weekly Tech Breather.
Blake, I think I know what TS's favorite email subscription is. Do you?
Oh, I have a feeling, but I'm going to let you tell me.
I think it just might be the Church Gear early service
Oh, it
list.
has to be.
It has to be. Like, TS has to see all of Church Gear's best gear 48 hours before it goes live on our site.
How else would she do all these amazing shows?
I mean, I know that TS would go to churchgear.com/early service and sign up today.
Yeah, because if not, she'll never be able to do another great song. Would you almost say that we are 80% of her success at this point?
I wouldn't go over 75.
Okay, 75.